David Silverman is co-founder of Clammr, a platform and mobile app that makes it easier to share and discover great audio. Clammr is integrated into leading podcast and audio players and reaches 25 million unique users monthly with the ability to share audio soundbites to social media and mash them up with images. Previously, David, you can tell from the way he's dressed, that previously David was executive director in Morgan Stanley's Mergers and Acquisitions department, where he worked on over $20 billion in tech, mobile, and media deals. Please welcome David Silverman from Clammr. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you, Mark. On-demand audio, spoken on-demand audio, is on the precipice of moving from mass consumer awareness and consciousness to mass consumer behavior. And we see this from a number of different angles. Podcasts have, over the last 3 years, grown in terms of penetration by 75%. They were at 12% in 2013 in terms of monthly penetration, and they're now at 21% as of this year. From an infrastructure perspective, we're seeing some incredibly important developments. In-dash infotainment systems have arrived. In 2016 and 2017 car models, basically all the major car manufacturers, in almost all their models, are rolling out in-dash infotainment. There's been a 100% increase in the last 3 years in penetration of those systems, so that's as of this month, but given what the car manufacturers are doing, that is going to increase dramatically with the car turnover. And what's interesting about that hardware change, that infrastructure change, is that we know that the demand is already there because the smartphone tells us that. The online audio listening in car today on smartphone, 37% of smartphone users listen to podcasts or on-demand audio in their car each month, and that is also a 76% rise over the last 3 years. Okay, so what does that mean in terms of the opportunity for spoken on-demand audio? Well, this is a snapshot of the market size today. It's about $4 billion in annual revenue in the US and Canada. 2 to 3 billion of that is currently radio, spoken, talk. About $1 billion is audiobooks. And podcasts today, about roughly $100 million, still tiny. But given the other changes that we're seeing and the growth rates that we're seeing, things are changing rapidly and we're at an inflection point. Now, another interesting aspect of this transition is that if we look at what happened in video, the transition to digital on-demand video actually increased the total pie size. The aggregate revenues associated with video increased by more than 20% over the 5 years that on-demand video became available. So if we do things right as an industry, there's an opportunity to actually grow this pie through the transition. So why hasn't it already happened? Why people have been predicting the demise of broadcast radio since 1997, as I'm sure many of you will recall. Well, one is the infrastructure issues that we've addressed. The smartphone is now ubiquitous. In-dash infotainment has arrived, but there's another key source of friction, and that's a discovery problem. So at my company, we've really focused on this discovery platform, this discovery problem, and through our research and testing, we've deconstructed the discovery problem into a few different components. First issue is that for discovery, podcasts are a little bit too long. You capture several standard deviations if you look at 25-minute podcasts up to 2-hour podcasts. And that's against a backdrop of an increasingly short-form world. One of the founding observations that we had when we looked at the world at the inception of our company was that there was an important short-form, bite-sized social platform in every other type of media except for audio that mattered. And we saw that in text, that was Twitter, which has now really become all media, but still largely text. In bite-sized social images, we see that with Instagram. In bite-sized social video, we saw that with Vine. But audio didn't have anything corresponding to that yet. And yet, the notion of the driveway moment in audio was already well understood. The moment, the soundbite that as you get home and you park in your driveway and you should be going in to play with your kids, something grabs you and sticks its hooks in so deep in a soundbite that you sit and listen to the end of the story. So first discovery problem is that in an increasingly short-form world, podcasts are a little bit too long to capture everyone, and that's why the battle to increase that penetration, the growth is happening, but not as quickly as some would like. Second discovery problem, audio is not optimized for social, and yet social is where media is what drives media consumption today. The social platforms are what, that largely Facebook and Twitter are the key drivers of media consumption today. There's a couple ways in which audio is not currently optimized for social. The first is the length issue. By the way, not only those platforms that I already referenced, which are short form sort of by definition, but even Facebook is short form biased, and shorter things get more carry on Facebook. But there's another issue, which is that audio doesn't play back natively on those social networks by and large. And so people often have to click out in order to access audio, and that's not how most people behave. Some do, but there's an opportunity to optimize audio for social and keep people in their in the feed, in the stream where they want to be. The third issue is that on-demand spoken audio is increasingly crowded. There's 1,400 new podcasts per week, and that means it's increasingly difficult to be heard. And it's increasingly difficult for people who are interested in hearing your message to find not only the good stuff, but the good stuff for them, the stuff that they want to hear in an increasingly crowded world of north of 150,000 active on-demand audio creators. So we see a four-legged stool that supports the growth that's needed to support the growth of on-demand. First leg is infrastructure. We've talked about that. It's in place. Great content. We know that there's tons of great content, almost too much, and it's hard to find. Third issue is monetization and ad sales, and there's a lot of great teams and organizations that are attacking this problem very well, and that have great tactics and are learning really how to optimize sales for on-demand audio. The fourth leg of the stool is audience growth, and we looked at the world and concluded that that was the weakest leg of the stool and the one that needed the most focus, or at least where we thought that we could be the most helpful in this world, because it's what everyone seems to struggle with. So we've run a number of surveys over the course of our testing and research, and so have many others. I believe Anne, I don't know if Anne is here from Pop-Up Archive, but I saw her on the attendee list. They've run a similar survey, I think, a few months ago. But everybody comes up with the same answer. The number one way that people discover spoken audio, i.e. podcasts today, is still social media. So we asked ourselves, how can we better optimize audio for the social media platforms that drive media consumption today? And the solution that we came up with and that we've been having some great initial success with basically is this. We at Clammr, we function as a bridge between audio and help optimize that for social media by working with Facebook and Twitter to develop a playback format that not only plays natively inline in those platforms directly, but also links back to drive audience growth to the underlying content, long-form content, which is, of course, key to the essential ingredient for creators to optimize their growth. And we do that by not only allowing content creators to create those shared moments, but also by allowing their fans to do that. So, so let me share some of our initial experiences with you. So first, just logistics. Essentially, this is what we do. This is what our technology does. We step one is we have created a set of tools that are available on multiple platforms: iOS, web, distributed in audio players by a number of other audio companies that allow audio creators and their fans to create soundbites. Soundbites of their favorite moments from podcasts that are by default linked to the long form show or other content that can be customized. That's step one, and we've distributed those tools to as many places as possible and continue to do so. Step two is that we've optimized the way that those soundbites appear on social media, and I'll give you some examples of how that's playing out. So CBS Radio, for example, their podcast network is called Play It, and they've been using Clammr as their primary format for several months now. What they've seen is a 5 times increase in the engagement of their Facebook posts when they use the Clammr tool and the Clammr format versus other formats that they use. I think I had a note on this. I had a couple things to just flag. One, so that card it shows up natively right in the stream, the user stream on Facebook and Twitter, and so they don't have to leave. They listen to what's up to a 24-second soundbite right in their stream. If you hook them, then they can click on whatever link the creator decided to attach. The default link is just the show that's hosted on the same platform that is linked through iTunes. It's just the RSS feed. Can be customized. So that's kind of step one, native playback. Second thing to note, it is capped at 24 seconds, which after much testing, we zeroed in on as the optimal amount of time that maximizes the number of clicks and yet provides enough time for consistently provide valuable nuggets of content for listeners that can be, quote, a driveway moment and get them to click through to the additional content. Third thing to note is that this format lets you take your audio and visualize it effectively. You can mash up any image you want. There's a default image. It's just the image from the podcast, but you can mash up GIFs. There's an integrated GIF search. You can provide any title you want that can be catchy in addition to the content, the text in the tweet or Facebook post. And then the last thing just to key in on is that the default and basically everyone that's using our format uses the link back. And the link back, there's a default, which is the show, and it can be customized to go to your website or wherever you want people to listen to your show, and it autoplays. Okay, so if you recall back to 2 slides ago, step one is let you, as a creator, or let your fans create soundbites. And we've been distributing these soundbite creation tools everywhere we can. So they're available. You can go, if someone has a show in iTunes and you hear a great moment, they don't have to have our button integrated into their site in order for you as a fan to say, I would like to post that incredible moment of Obama saying the N-word on Mark Maron's podcast to my Facebook feed before anybody else does. You can just go directly to Clammr.com and do that. You can also do that in the Clammr app. But you can also do that from Apple's podcast app. Once you have the Clammr app installed on your phone, you can share directly to Clammr, which lets you create the soundbite and then share via Clammr to Facebook and Twitter. And then we've also distributed into the players of many other major media players a Clammr share button. And we've seen a pretty widespread adoption of podcasters who have embedded this button into their players. So some players that make it available are Libsyn, Blueberry, WordPress, a number of others. Podcast One's got it integrated into their shows. And the reach of that button is now, in November it was 1 million, it reached 1 million users. Now it reaches 25 million users per month as of May. All right. So this is how the button basically can be integrated if you use a WordPress player or any other kind of player to promote as the player on your website for if you have on-demand audio. You can select a button in many different kinds of players. Podcast One has a custom player, and that button appears on all of their show pages. So that's just an example of a custom integration. Now here's a different approach. What USA Today is using Soundbites for is here's a key insight. You can still share when you post a new piece of content, you can still share and should still share the full link to iTunes as you always have. But now, throughout the week, you can be promoting that show through the best moments and sharing the sound bites, which all link back to the show. And now instead of annoying your Facebook feed by posting, or your Twitter feed by posting the same thing 5 times, you've given them 5 different nuggets in addition to what you used to do. And by the way, those 5 different nuggets are getting 5 times more engagement each based on the experiences of our users so far when you post it to your Facebook and Twitter feed. Now, what USA Today is doing is they take their podcast at the end of each week. They are already doing fairly short form shows, 5-minute shows, 15-minute shows. And at the end of the week, they're aggregating the best moments from those shows into a playlist, which they then make available on their site. This is our not our soundbite creation widget, but our playback widget. If a user on the USA Today website plays those soundbites, they'll play back in a series that's been customized as a playlist by the owner, in this case USA Today, and each soundbite is, of course, still linked back to the full show. So it's a great way to give people, a sample of what is covered in each show in audio format, which is what they're looking for. We recently launched a premium content network. The easiest analogy to use is, I don't know how many people are familiar with Taboola or Outbrain. Taboola and Outbrain are content promotion for articles. So for those of you who don't know it, when you're on a text website, a blog, you'll often see at the bottom, you might also enjoy, and then there's a number of headlines that are often fairly clickbaity that will encourage you to click something about Donald Trump's hair or what have you. The Taboola and Outbrain are the networks that power that across websites, and it has led to a large amount of traffic for other bloggers, essentially a way for traffic to get moved around the internet. We've launched something very similar, optimized for audio. Our pilot is anchored by Microsoft's group of corporate podcasts, and the playlist of soundbites appears beside relevant articles and is available today on entrepreneur.com and some other places soon. Here's some, some nice things that people have said about us. I think my favorite's not included on there. My favorite is Rob Greenlee, who was one of the founding fathers of podcasting and has worked at senior positions at Podcast One and Spreaker. He calls Clammr the leading edge of innovation in audio. I'm not sure if that's true, but it's certainly what we aspire to. Thanks, everyone.